Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to the Steelers Preview. I'm Jeff Hartman, co-editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. With me, as always, the triumphant trio, Dave Schofield, Steelers superfan, ooper duper duper guy, dad, fad, whatever. How's it going, Dave?
Hey, it's going. I'm still riding the high from last Sunday, man. I'm just like, everything about that is great and fantastic. You know, what a better team. I almost feel bad for that team that may help the Steelers get to 7. Wait a second. No, I don't.
With that said, Bryan Anthony Davis, what's going on, Bryan?
Boys, it's Thursday. It's coming, week 9. I think I need to celebrate this in song. It be the original. Hey, ain't it great? Tonight we're gonna party like it's 1978.
Is that Prince or is that Bryan? I don't know.
Yeah,
I couldn't tell.
It was a mashup.
It is formerly known as. All right. Does anyone else find this game? Maybe it's just me, and maybe it's just because I'm exhausted. I don't know. But does anyone else find it that this game in particular, going into week 9, being in the 3 big matchups the last 3 weeks, you have Cleveland at home, the first divisional game, on the road, undefeated Tennessee, Pittsburgh and Baltimore, and then it's like Dallas.
Yeah.
Which normally is not it's normally not that way, because I still believe that the Pittsburgh-Dallas rivalry is still there. It's as strong as it could be between an AFC North and an NFC East opponent. But I think it's there because I think it's mainly with the fans. The fans don't like Dallas fans. Dallas fans don't like Steeler fans. There's all that stuff. Guys, you find it a little bit hard to get up for this game? Bryan, we'll go with you first.
Not at all, because this on the schedule was going to be a crazy 4 straight games. Now, I know originally on the schedule, Tennessee wasn't in it, but when it all changed, that foursome was just incredible. So this is the end of the road trip, that 3-game road trip that everybody was completely scared of. And this is a team that is absolutely reeling, but there's still a star on the helmet. It's still the mystique. You can still think back, same uniforms that we saw 40-some years ago. It's still there. And it's the Cowboys and the Steeler fans. And I'm sure the teams also feel like they want to beat each other, because this is one of the great all-time intra-conference or interconference or non-conference rivals.
What about you, Dave? What do you think?
As the fan base as a whole, I would say yes. We were kind of talking about this last night on the Know Your Enemy show, and it's more of that. What generation is your fan base? If the younger generation, like even me, who was born in 1978, so therefore I was missing most of that. You still had the Super Bowl, the 95 season in there. This is more of our father's rivals, if you understand what I'm saying. So for those of us that had the tradition of the Steelers passed down to us from somebody else in our family, from the previous generation, yes. For those people that have, and we have plenty of them here, because we have a wide variety that in the live chat, listening on the audio platform, visiting BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers.
Good plug.
We have a wide variety, and we have lots of people that are just fans because they loved football and the Steelers ended up being their team. Some of them, it's not because this was their mother or father's or grandmother or grandfather's team. So therefore, it's not quite the same for those fans. But there's enough of those fans where it's been passed down from generation to generation that it's still holding on there.
You're right there, Dave. You are right. I will say this, that outside of the fact that we live in Maryland, okay, and obviously we hate the Ravens fans the most because we're surrounded by them. Number 2 for me, because they're everywhere as well, are Dallas fans. I can't stand Dallas Cowboys fans. I can't stand that organization. I don't like Jerry Jones. 1995, Super Bowl 30 still stings with me, Dave. I was young. I mean, so there is my generation, your generation as well. There was that 1970s rivalry rekindled, okay? I didn't like Barry Switzer because he was the coach of the team when they beat the Steelers in 1995. I hate Neil Donnell because of that, even though Bryan has a shrine to him in his house. He loves Neil O'Donnell, by the way, if you're just now listening to the show. I don't like the Cowboys at all. But it's the fans. I could care less about the team because you only see them every 4 years. It's the fans I can't stand. And Tony Romo. Can't stand Tony Romo. Shut up, Tony Romo. It's enough of you talking so much. Let Jim Nance talk.
Not all Cowboys fans are terrible. I understand legit Cowboys fans. I can't stand the non-legit Cowboys fans. I tried to bring this up before. I don't think I made my point very well. Is that person like, I love the Cowboys. Oh, are you from Texas? No. Is your family from Texas? No. Have you ever been to Texas? No. Why do you like the Cowboys? Because they were good. They were good.
Well,
but
Steelers fans can't say
Steelers too.
No, you do. You get a lot, but think about it this way: there's especially people from other countries. You see the popular teams on television only.
Yeah.
Now, if you're in the United States, you have to draw you got to connect the dots at some point. And maybe it was that no one in your family followed football, and you watch them win a Super Bowl in Super Bowl 30 in 1995, and you like the Cowboys because of that. Fanhood has to start somewhere.
Yeah.
But ultimately, like, there's people I've talked to that lived in England, and they're like, I like the Steelers because it was the only team they showed on TV when we saw 2 games a year, and so I just started liking the team. So I get what you're saying, but Brian,
Kevin Smith's the same way. I mean, he liked the Steelers because he was watching as a kid. They were in the Super Bowl. He fell in love with that team.
Right.
Our touchdown under guys found them the same way. One, because I think one of them loved the colors black and gold, and then they started following them because they in Madden, and they were perfect to follow at the time. So and it was the perfect time because it was in the early 2000s when the Ben Roethlisberger was coming in, and they discovered these teams. I have my wife was telling me the other day, we have friends in England that are so close to us that they're actually, we consider them family, and they called during the Ravens game and they said, hey, it's on right now. That's the game we're getting right now. We're watching the Steelers for you. And of course I've outfitted them in so much black and gold. And that's why if I ever wear a soccer jersey that nobody's heard of, because I'm wearing their team, because that's the only thing that I know. So that's the way we find these teams. But Dallas and Pittsburgh, they're kind of like New England now, but those were the teams that everybody saw back in the 70s, and we didn't have ESPN. We didn't have fantasy football. We didn't have Madden. This stuff was not everywhere. So the small glimpses that you got of these teams were basically on that other NFC game. It was always the Cowboys because they were a huge team. And I'm sure for an NFC team, they were seeing the Steelers too, because they were the ones that were always nationally televised because they were the big teams. And it was a lasting impression. So Dallas for me is kind of a special team. I hate them a lot. Don't get me wrong. I can't stand them. I will always root against them unless they're playing the Patriots or somebody from the AFC North, and they always let me down when that happens. But it's just one of those things. I'm still stuck in the craw from Tony Dorsett when he was Tony Dorsett back when he was at Pitt, goes to Dallas, and the J.R. Ewing hats and all this, and Hollywood Henderson days with saying Bradshaw can't spell cat if you supply him the C and the T, and he's snorting coke on the sidelines in an inhaler. It's an amazing thing. I mean, they were the anti-teams. Like it was said, yes, RJ said it yesterday on the show on Know Your Enemy. This Steelers are known as a blue collar team. This was a country club team, and they were the antithesis of each other. You had the JR, like I said, the J.R. Ewings from Dallas in that show. That was the epitome of what the Cowboys were, and the Steelers were your steel workers, your blue collar guys, that the pride. And so they clashed, and it was perfect. It was a great picture of America at the time, and it still kind of remains that way.
Yeah, good. Dave.
I just want to say before we go on, and I said that because I said that about Cowboys fans. I really should say this more than anything. I can't stand uninformed fans that claim they're really big fans and they don't know anything.
Oh, yeah.
Like when you run into a Cowboys fan here that says, "Yeah, Dak Prescott's going to tear up the Steelers this weekend."
So you hate all Bengals fans?
Really? Yeah. Well, but you know what I'm saying? If you're going to be a fan, at least know No, Tony Romo is calling the game. He's still not quarterbacking, So don't say you're a really big fan and then not know. I mean, you don't have to be like this. I mean, Bryan could probably tell you, I know I can, every player on the Steelers practice squad. But guess what? I don't expect that. But at least know a little bit of what's going on.
You should. You're right. Go ahead, Bryan.
I just wanted to jump on that with Dave. I remember back in the day when the Penguins were starting to get really good and they were winning cups and fans came all on the bandwagon. And then you had those fans that just loved the Penguins and they tell you how much they love the Penguins. Yeah, I love that Lemieux and that Jagger guy. Those guys are great. It's like, yeah. Not Lemieux.
Yeah. But do they know Jim Pack? That's the question. Do you know Jimmy Pack?
Number 2.
Exactly.
I know Jimmy Pack.
Okay, now I will say this. My wife cringes. I mean, she gets nervous. I don't, because I'm not going to do anything ridiculous. If we were in a social gathering of any kind and someone says, I'm a huge Steeler fan, she gets so nervous because she's like, oh my gosh, there's no way they know this team as well as Jeff. He's going to ask them these questions and they're not going to know it and they're going to feel like an idiot. Now, I don't do that. I really don't. I mean, you all might laugh because you could see me doing that. But I'm like, oh, no, but it's like one of those situations where like, oh yeah, you're a Steeler fan. What do you think about the team this year? Oh, I haven't been following them too much. Like I caught one game and it's like, okay, you're not that big of a fan. Like I haven't missed a game in, I don't know, decades. It's so
ironically,
good,
that's how we first started talking. That's the exact thing you said to me.
What?
How do you think they're going to do this year? And it was June.
You got to get a feel for the, and then I used to work with someone. I'm not going to say where I work or who I worked with. And she declared herself the number one Steeler fan in the world. And so I would always say, like, what do you think about the draft class that they just got? Oh, who'd they get? You've lost all credibility with me. If you claim to be the number one fan, you have to know who they just drafted. And then I would say, you'd be like, oh, she'd be like, oh, a kid, I'm a teacher. So a student would say like, oh, where did that guy play in college? And she wouldn't know. It's like, come on, you have to know your team. I mean, you don't have to know where the X, Y, and Z receiver are in a 3 wide receiver set. You don't have to know that, but you should definitely know where Ben Roethlisberger went to college. You should know that. That's common knowledge.
Which was very disappointing because my niece goes to that college right now.
Oh.
And didn't know that.
Oh.
And I'm like, what?
Heck, I want you to know where he went to high school.
Yeah,
I want
Finley.
you to say Finley. Yeah.
Yeah, well, okay.
And that's why my wife loves you guys, because I have someone else that actually cares about these kinds of things that I can talk to.
Well, yeah, I'll say this. Jeffrey Benedict put it perfectly. There was one day we were in our Slack channels. I don't know what was going on. I was mad at the questions asked in a press conference. There were questions about helmet decals and not about like the offensive line itself. The questions that fans should want to know, like, what about this upcoming game? And they're like, well, what do you think about this player wearing this sticker? Come on, do something that's actually related to football. And you know what he said? Jeffrey Banks said, Jeff, he said, the average fan just goes to ESPN or they go to CBS Sports. The diehard fan comes to Behind the Steel Curtain because they don't get the sticker articles. They get this is why Avery Williamson fits well with the Steelers. And it's a film breakdown. You learn something. So there you go. All right. Speaking of Avery Williamson, I want to start there. I want to get your thoughts. And honestly, honest to goodness, I don't know. I haven't talked to you all really about your thoughts on this trade outside of Dave a little bit. We talked a little bit about it recently, but still, Bryan, we'll start with you since I have no idea what you think. They trade a 2022 fifth round pick, the Steelers do, and they get Avery Williamson, let's say for this year, like a rental player. And then they get a 2022 seventh round pick. So nothing in this upcoming draft. Bryan, what were your thoughts when they made the trade?
So basically they're moving down 45 spots because the Jets are going to be pretty much at the top of the seventh round. I mean, even in 2020,
hey, they might turn around next season and win a game or two.
Yeah, but there's still, I mean,
huge improvement.
Yeah, you're just
nowhere to go but up.
You're trading down. That's it. You're moving down spots. You don't even lose a draft pick, and you're getting a tackling machine that if he leaves next year, guess what? You're getting all Dave's comp formulas. Dave's going to be, I know his comp formulas are going crazy in his brain right now. I mean, he's going crazy with comp, but this is the kind of guy that is so elated to be here that who knows? He might stick around. You never know what's going to happen with this guy. But here's the deal. No matter what he does this year, because it's really tough to come into a situation in week 9, and especially he's got to take a week off because of COVID, so you're not going to really see him until week 10 to get to know that entire defense. But guy's a really intelligent guy. He knows Bud Dupree real well. He knows a lot of these players. He's been in contact with them. And I really feel like he's the kind of guy that is going to study. He seems like a high character guy as well. So I'm sure he's going to be paying dividends somewhere. It is not a demotion for a guy like Robert Spillane. Robert Spillane needs some time off. He can't be going 100% of the time on defense. He needs to be spelled. So you got to spell Spillane is really what you've got to do. And so this is not a demotion. This is a situation for Robert Spillane. He's like, I'm getting help. This is awesome. So this is a guy, I listened to him the other day when he was on the Fan the very next day. In fact, he's already going to be on every week on the Fan. They've already signed him up. That's how excited they are for this guy. And he was really well spoken. He seems like the kind of guy that you just want to bring in. The Steelers were looking at him big time in free agency just 2 years ago. So Mike Tomlin knows all about this guy. Mike Tomlin's a guy that you want to play for. This is a really good trade because other teams will see what happens with a guy going from 0-8 to a 7-0 team. And if they finish very strong or with the sticky Lombardi, they're going to look at this and go, hey, that's the place to be. Avery Williamson went there. He has glowing things to say about it. It's a win all the way around. You really can't lose this deal. You didn't lose anything.
Yeah. Dave, what were your thoughts on the trade for Avery Williamson?
Loved what they gave up for him, which was basically nothing.
Yep.
Love the salary they took on, only hitting about 1.45, a little bit more than just under $1.5 million for the rest of the season. You know, that's a big plus. One of the biggest things that I didn't want with the Steelers making moves when people were emailing me and asking me about other things, I'm like, don't mess up the locker room. You don't want to bring in someone who pushes somebody else out that guys care for. You also don't want to bring in someone that's just going to kind of upset things a little bit. And I feel that they found the right fit, not just for a position that they needed, but from everything that I've seen so far from him, they've got the right guy, attitude, teammate-wise, coming in. I'm hoping I'm right. I can't say for sure until it all happens, but from everything I've heard, when Jets fans are happy for him that he's going to be playing for a good team, because he was the one guy that was still playing hard and trying to rally the team to, come on, guys, let's keep going. You know, when other guys are just, you know, weaseling their way out and getting released so they can end up on Super Bowl contenders. You know, he was still doing it the right way. Didn't ask for a trade. They just did it. So I already like him, and he hasn't even stepped on the field yet.
Jeffrey Benedict did a great article for BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. It was a film room about breaking down what he does well, what he doesn't do well. It's still on the page. You can check it out, or you can just Google it and you'll find it for sure. But here's what Mike Tomlin had to say Tuesday about Williams. I'm giving you the Cliff Notes version here. Obviously, Williamson did go to Kentucky with Bud Dupree. So Mike Tomlin met him at Bud Dupree's pro day, said he has a passion for football. So they just kind of naturally gravitated towards one another to talk about the game. He was drafted by Tennessee, which has a very similar system to Pittsburgh, not just in schematics, but also in verbiage. So they're hoping he can pick up the defense quickly. Definitely fortifies depth. He's a known commodity. He wasn't sure if he'll be available this Sunday. I know that Keith Butler talked about that a little bit today during his media session. And he said that, you know, it's probably just too early. They because of the COVID restrictions, they couldn't even get him in the building until Saturday. They've just been working virtually with him. So he said he hopes they don't need him on Sunday, meaning that everything's fine, everyone's healthy. But he said he's also a person capable of supporting both Vince Williams and Robert Spillane. And so there's a good chance that this might be, he is the guy that comes in when one of those guys needs a break. He's definitely not the athlete that Devin Bush is. He's not the athlete that UG3 is. He's a different type of player. The Steelers are still going to have to get creative, I think, on how they want to deploy their linebackers against some more athletic, running backs that might be in the slot, tight ends that are definitely active. You think about Travis Kelce. The most recent film on Avery Williamson was not very good trying to cover Travis Kelce, but to his credit, Travis Kelce makes a lot of people look silly, just so you know that. Keep that
and he had teammates that were the New York Jets.
Yeah, they're probably not trying much. Could you imagine, though, just real quick before we move on, could you imagine literally you're on an 0-8 team? I don't know. Are they 0-8, right? Or 0-7?
They're 0-8.
0-8.
They're 0-8. And you just think, holy cow, I'm in a contract year. Like, this is it? This is how my career is going to go down? I might be lucky if I even get an offer next year. And then the Pittsburgh Steelers, the only undefeated team, 7-0, says, yeah, we want you. Oh, my gosh. Get out of here. This has nothing to do with like Pittsburgh being a great football town. Just the opportunity itself. I guarantee you this guy will do anything they ask him to do, and he'll do it 100%, no doubt about it. So he seems like a good guy, seems like a high character guy, seems like a guy that Pittsburgh Steelers would want to trade for. Let's just put it that way. Yeah. So, all right, I want to get started talking about the Cowboys, but first, Dave, give us the updated injury report. Reminder for all those people listening in audio platform, this is a Thursday night show. So if you're listening on Friday at noon, you probably won't see the report yet, but if you're listening later, they might have already had the game status released. But Dave, what do we have right now?
All right. Well, I was kind of hopeful that the only player that you would see not practicing was Tyson Alualu because he was there.
He's not.
They said he's going to miss some time. I'm not holding out hope for him coming back, especially it's not with Cam Hayward practicing fully both days. They didn't even put him on the injury report yesterday to start. They kind of forgot about it. They're like, oh yeah, I guess you better put Cam on there or else it might look bad. He did
make that injury at the end of the game against the
Ravens. So, but of course, Tyson Alualu did not practice. I would be stunned if he's anything but DNP out tomorrow on Friday. He's not playing. Okay. The thing that's quite interesting is Stefan Wisniewski did not practice for the second straight day, who just came back. Here's the deal with him. They started practicing him 3 weeks ago. They either had to keep him on IR for the rest of the season or bring him back. So the question is, did he re-injure or did they bring him back and start him before they should have?
Well, I have a theory on that, and that is that they had to bring him back or else they would lose him. So it might be an injury where they're like, it's going to be a couple more weeks for him to actually be back. We can't, we want him as depth, but we have to make a decision. We have to make a move. We started the clock on him. So because of that, you bring him in, but he's basically going to be inactive every week until he's fully healthy, which makes it tough though, when you're looking at the practice squad and the players that they have. I think they're fine at guard and at center, to be honest with you. I think they can be patient with him. That's my thing.
Yeah, I look for him to not to be the lineman who's inactive. But when they brought him back, I know we still got to get the rest of the injury report. But when they brought him back, they didn't get rid of one of their other linemen. They're carrying more than normal. They've been dressing 8, carrying 9. Right now they're carrying 10. But you're going to have to do something whenever you bring in Williamson. So rather than do the lineman move early in the week, they brought him in, and that's when they put UG3 on the IR. So I think when Williamson comes in, they're going to have to, release one of their linemen and try to get him back on the practice squad, most likely. But he didn't practice. The other one that's a little bit concerning, someone who was limited yesterday and then did not practice today, was Isaiah Buggs. So I know some people were talking about, Buggs against the run against the Cowboys. Jeffrey brought this up last night, and you guys know he put it on our Slack channel during the game. He was like, wow, they must have given him some really good stuff at halftime because he was favoring his ankle so bad in the first half. And then he comes out in the second half and plays lights out. That was part of his problem the first half is he was playing hurt. So it is an ankle. He was limited yesterday, didn't practice today. It'll be interesting to see what happens on Friday to see if, once again, maybe we'll have him limited and questionable and then play him, but give him something for it like they did last week, especially with Alualu out because he doesn't want to miss time. He was inactive the week before. So this is his chance with someone else being injured. But we'll see. I would not be surprised if Bryan's son ends up getting a helmet then on Sunday. That's a possibility. But for everyone else was full participation except for Mike Hilton was once again limited. So it'll be interesting to see how he is.
So real quick before we get to Bryan's take on some of these injuries, anyone noticed that Chris Wormley, who missed a game because of a knee, I guess he's fine. He's back.
No, he's on IR.
He went to IR. When did Chris Wormley go to IR?
Oh, they put him on IR with Trey Edmunds.
Yep. So this would tell me. So let's just play this game then. If Bugs can't go, you're out Bugs and Aluwali. You have to give Bryan's son a helmet.
And unless you wanted to promote 6'9" Calvin Taylor from the practice squad.
Sheesh, that's oof. Man,
I would say he's probably, if Bugs can't go, then Davis is going to play. He's going to dress. He would be your fifth guy.
Yeah, and let me also say, they can't rush Hilton. They can't rush Hilton back. If Mike Hilton is in any way, shape, or form a danger of hurting that shoulder again, whether it's with a hit or someone blocking him, sit him out. Let him get healthy. You need him for the stretch run. And that's the way the Steelers should be thinking. Dave's doing mental math right now.
No, I think David, even if Bugs can go, I think Davis still gets a helmet because I think they only have 4 right now with right?
Mondo,
Tuitt, Cam, Mondo, Tuitt, and Bugs.
If Bugs can't go, then yeah, they got to.
No, but I mean, they dress 5. So it's going to be
Bugs is going to play.
Well, but it's still going to be Davis. I think will at least get a helmet, and then if Bugs can't go, they're going to have to promote.
Well, you think they're a proud father there, Bryan Anthony Davis. Your son might get to play this Sunday. I hope you're excited.
Oh yeah, I mean we've been really we've been planning for this moment for a long time. So I'm really proud of my boy Carlos. I mean, and my nephew Sean. Hopefully he'll get some action in there too. Yeah. So everything that you said, this is where you're going to find out all the answers to your questions, Dave. I mean, I know you've talked about a few guys on there to talk about the Wisniewski thing. When you see Hassenauer status, you're going to know whether Wisniewski's fine or not. Because if Hassenauer is still on the roster on the 53, then you know that Wisniewski's not fine. So that's pretty much, but remember back in 1995, you carried Rod Woodson for an entire season with an ACL injury. And just to get him back for that one game for the Super Bowl. And he played in that game. So they knew that they had an opportunity to get him back. This is a situation you just don't want to shut the door on Wisniewski. That's why they're doing it. That makes sense. Cam Hayward, I love you. I just want you to say this. Practice this now. I'd like to thank the Academy because that is definitely going to come up. And I told my dad about that today. He's like, really? That happened? I'm like, yeah, you know what, Dad? He did. And he wasn't going to get back to the line. It could have been a 5-year penalty. He goes, smart then. So that's all he said. He said, I didn't realize it. I'm like, yeah, Jeff pointed it out. And I'm like, absolutely.
Like I said, it wasn't Emmanuel Sanders. It wasn't that.
It wasn't that.
It wasn't that. Cam was hurting. I just think if that play would have been incomplete, was it 4th down? I was going to say, if it wasn't 4th down, it would have been incomplete and they were running another play. I think he was ready to go right there at that spot. But that's me.
Yeah. So the Steelers, believe it or not, in my opinion, they're in pretty good health right now. I mean, if we're talking about, Isaiah Bugs, we hope he plays and we hope he's healthy and we hope that Mike Hilton gets back and he's healthy, but they're a really pretty healthy team coming in. But what about the Cowboys, Dave? What's their status look like?
It's basically the same as yesterday. I'm pretty sure they were
the exact same.
Okay, yeah, that it was. I knew it was the same 3 players, and I thought they were the same designations. You had a limited Ezekiel Elliott with a hamstring, you had a limited Alden Smith with a knee, and you had a did not practice punter Chris Jones with an abdomen.
Yeah,
abdomen. Sorry, that last night on Know Your Enemy, RJ's like, we don't even have a punter. Is what he was saying. That he thinks he's not going to play, but I don't know.
They don't need a punter with all those interceptions.
Yeah.
They're not going to need a punter. But really, breaking news on the injury front. I just want everybody to know I like to break news every once in a while.
Dun, 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 dun.
Dak Prescott, Andy Dalton, out. There you have it.
Now, I know that Bryan will appreciate this. When Dak Prescott hurt his ankle, do you know what that reminded me of? Jason Kendall.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was 1994, maybe, Three River Stadium. He's running out a bunt, hits first base, rolls his ankle. It dislocates, and he breaks it, and he keeps going because he's sprinting. The trainers come out, they zoom down, you can see his bones sticking out of his sock. They had to put all they did is put a towel over it. He's screaming obscenities. This is live television, folks. I remember it's the 4th of July, I think we're watching this. My dad's like, oh, that's bad. I said, that's really bad. And then he told me to get him a beer. Okay, anyways.
Memories.
So, with the injuries, and we'll talk about some of those injuries coming up here on the second half. Here on the audio side, we're going to take a quick break and go over to part 2. You'll get our X Factors, over-under trivia, predictions, all that good stuff there. If you're watching live on YouTube, don't go anywhere because we're not going anywhere. We'll see you right after this break. All right, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, Jeff Hartman, co-editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, with you for part 2 of the Steelers preview as we prepare you for Week 9, the game in Dallas, the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Jerry World. I'm joined by Dave Schofield, the other co-editor, and Bryan Anthony Davis, the podcast producer at BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, your one-stop shop for all things Steelers. George Teston asked what kind of beer, Jeff. If you listen to the end of part 1, for those in audio, it was a Miller Lite. My dad drinks Miller Lite, only Miller Lite. I remember I learned at his coworker's house where we used to alternate playoff games for the Steelers. I learned how to pour a beer from a kegerator at a very young age, to the point that, no head, how to tilt the cup. It's that I mean, everyone has different skills that their fathers passed down. That was mine. So there you go. Let's talk a little bit about this upcoming game, shall we, boys? The Steelers and Cowboys. This game. What's wrong, Bryan? You're just laughing hysterically.
Dave's laughing because something's going on in his head.
What's going on in your head?
Going in on my head when you said something about the beer. Because we're juvenile.
Yes. Let's move on.
Did I leave it? That's what she said there, Dave, or something? I don't think so.
No, it's all right. We can go.
Here we go. I don't know. Let's this game. I said this at the beginning of the show. This lacks firepower. If Dak Prescott was the quarterback, you're talking Amari Cooper, you're talking CeeDee Lamb, you're talking Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, you're talking about a big-time matchup on a big-time stage, and that's why CBS has basically said, this is a nationally televised game. We're getting Romo and Nance for the second week in a row. Some like that, some don't. But still, I look at this game and say, oh my gosh, the two guys that they're going to throw out there, it's not Ben DiNucci. It's either Cooper Rush or what's the other guy, Dave?
Garrett Gilbert. Both of those guys have never started a game in their life. And your first game is going to be against the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. And not only that, in all his infinite wisdom, because remember, everyone wanted McCarthy to come back to Pittsburgh and replace Mike Tomlin. This guy, instead of saying, hey, we're going to... Well, not everybody. You know what I mean. Yeah. He says you have two inexperienced quarterbacks. You think you would pick one and say, we're giving him all the reps. We need him to get as comfortable as possible heading into this game. Nope. They're splitting reps all week. So whoever he decides is going to be the quarterback this week. And I don't know, who did RJ say last night he thinks going to be the quarterback? Did he give you any inkling, Dave? He thinks it's going to be Gilbert.
Okay. So if he goes with Gilbert, good luck with the Steelers defense. And
he's got all that experience from the AAF.
Yes.
So, yes.
Well, the Steelers defense is very much akin to an AAF defense, I think. Anyways, so guys, when you think about this, Ezekiel Elliott can only do so much, and you have Amari Cooper, but someone's got to throw him the football. Where are the weaknesses here that the Steelers are going to exploit, Bryan?
Well, first thing first, Ezekiel Elliott is not the same guy that played in this game in 2016 as a rookie and ran all over him. He's not. He took the money, and now he's fumbling the ball. He's still a good running back. But I got to tell you, he is I don't want to say shell of himself, but he's lost a little bit of a step, and he does not have the urgency. And now when you're playing with a 2-6 team, this is not the Steelers that were 0-3 and still had the pride to go 8-8 and fight without their franchise quarterback. It seems like these guys have given up. Zeke Elliott has no line whatsoever. That line, which used to be the cream of the league, is nothing. Tyron Smith's gone. Everybody. I mean, they are a shell of themselves. They are horrible. So not only is Cooper Rush, and remember, C Rush means crush. He's going to get crushed if he plays. Garrett Gilbert, I mean, Gilbert from Revenge of the Nerds is probably a better option, and he's like 55 now. So all I'm saying is you've got this offense that even though they're really ranked high as far as passing, they have no one, but that's all because of the Dak numbers that Dak was putting up. These guys have put up nothing. In fact, they less than 100 2 weeks ago. That's how bad this team is. They are scrambling as far as passing yards go. They're very weak on that entire offense. They've got great receivers. CeeDee Lamb is amazing. Amari Cooper is fantastic. You've got Michael Gallup. He's really good too. But as far as everything else goes, who's going to get him the ball? Nobody. And Zeke can't do it himself behind a line that's not going to give him any openings.
What do you think, Dave? You thought about this game more than most of us after doing the show last night, filling in for Michael Beck. Well, what are your thoughts on this upcoming matchup?
I was surprised to learn, if RJ is any indication as to diehard Cowboys fans, how much they do not care for Ezekiel Elliott.
Really?
And do not think he is a very quality running back. That was very eye-opening to me, because I thought, they love Zeke and everything else. They just think he's not worth what they decided to do in paying him and not locking up Prescott. So that was very interesting. I mentioned this last night. What's crazy is that the Cowboys are still the number one passing offense in the NFL. And they're going to be starting probably take your pick, whether it's the fourth or fifth string quarterback. But the only reason they're still number one is carryover from those first 4 games of the season from when they had Dak Prescott, when they put up 3 straight great games of over 400 yards passing. I mean, but then you look at the passing yards, they had 59 passing yards against the football team. I mean, this is not the same team from back then. This is just, I don't know. And when you have a new quarterback, as we know, we should know more than anybody, how does everything change with a different quarterback? A ton. How the Steelers tried to change up their offense and try to build to the strengths of their quarterback and everything like that. Completely know what that's going to be. Is that what the Cowboys are they trying to do that? I don't even know.
That's the question. It is crazy how great their offense was with Dak when Dak Prescott was healthy at the beginning of the season. He was on pace to throw for some ungodly number. I'm talking like 6,000 yards.
It was
like
insane.
he was on pace. He was going to break every passing record in the NFL if he kept that pace, which would be difficult anyways. But at the same time, this defense that the Steelers have put together is, even in their current state, and we talked about the injuries just a little bit ago, my gosh, it just doesn't look good. It's just, that's all I'm going to say. It just doesn't look good. Now, Dave, defensively for the Cowboys, they're not too shabby as a pass defense. I believe, if I listen to your Stat Geek, they're almost the exact same as Pittsburgh in terms of giving up 221.
Yes, I have it here.
No, 213 and 214, right?
It was 213.9 for the Steelers and 214.0 for the Cowboys. They're ranked 7th and 8th. But what I didn't look at that I'd really like to see is, what about passing attempts? Because if teams are up on the Cowboys by a ton, they don't need to throw the ball. So therefore you don't. And when you're the last ranked rushing defense and teams are ahead in the game, why would they still want to throw the ball? So that's, to me, I think that might be a little bit where that's coming from. All in all, I don't think much of their defense at all.
Snowman puts $5 in the tip jar. We appreciate that. He says, put 8 in the box, make them throw, and don't turn the ball over. Steelers win. I sometimes would say, like, the game's not that simple, but it could be that simple. It could be that simple. Let's get right into things here, gentlemen. Let's do some X factors. You look at the X, the Steelers. Who's the player? We'll do one for offense, one for defense. Who's the player that you think is going to be a difference maker for the Steelers in one way, shape, or form? We'll start on defense. Bryan, we'll start with you as well. Who's your defensive X factor in this game?
Oh, wow. I was all ready to throw out my offensive guy. So defense. I'm actually going to go ahead and put a defender up there. And I'm going to go with a guy that
I would hope so. It's defense.
Let's cut that one and cut that one. No, I'm actually going to put a defensive back out there.
Oh, well, there you go.
And
You
that's
gotta play hard.
Yes, you do have to play hard. Steven Nelson. I'm actually looking at Steven Nelson this week because, look, I know we just talked about how are they going to get the ball off there? How are they going to get it out? They're still going to be able to, these guys are still going to get balls out of there. So it's going to go towards the secondary. I could see a guy like Steven Nelson getting a pick or two in this game if he plays good defense against guys like Lamb, guys like Amari Cooper. These guys are still 5-star receivers. So I'm looking at Mr. 22 to do it. All
right. Before we get to Dave and talk about his defender that he's going to bring up, we have $5 from, I think it's Michelle Powers. Thank you very much. She said, I just wanted you all to know how much I enjoy you guys, and we enjoy you and all the people in the live chat that are part of our YouTube community. Thank you very much for that generous donation. And if you're listening on audio platform, you're wondering what is this whole YouTube community, go to youtube.com, search BTSC Steelers Radio, subscribe so that you don't miss a thing. All right, Dave, your X factor that is on defense. We assume that he is a defender.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the defender on this one. And I was actually thinking corner as well, but I was going to go Joe Hayden, but I don't want to go with corners for both of us. So what I'm going to say, I'm going to go with the defensive player of the week. I'm going to go with Stephon Tuitt, stepping up there on the defensive line. Maybe if in case Cam's a little dinged up, maybe. And with no Alualu, you need Tuitt to, hey, he got on a roll last week. He was dominant. Let's carry it into this week as well. Let's have him just disrupting everything in there.
I'm going to go with, someone that Bryan has brought up forever in his bold, bizarre predictions, and I think it's Terrell Edmunds. I think this is a game where maybe he gets the good fortune of
went with the defender.
It is a surprise that I did that. But Terrell Edmunds, I feel like he's due, and maybe he gets a really bad quarterback that can throw a really bad pass, and maybe it's a tip ball. I don't care. The guy has played really good football this year, and it's just not getting talked about. So I'll also go with Edmunds. Now let's go to the offensive side of the football, your offensive X factor, which means it's an offensive player. Bryan, who's your offensive X factor?
Well, Jeff, I'm going to go with offense here. And, I'm going to go back to the well that I always go to. And it's one, you guys can say it with me.
James Conner.
Yeah. Jimmy C. And I just really think, look, how many yards have they given up on the ground in average? It is like 170. It's absolutely ridiculous. This is tailor-made for James Conner to go ahead and run on this team. And just when he's running wild and continuing to run wild, Ben's going up top. And I'm really thinking that there's going to be a lot of points in this game. We'll talk about that later, but it starts with James Conner.
All right, Dave, who's your X factor other than Jimmy C?
I've mentioned this a little bit last night, and you might think I'm a little bit crazy. I'm going with Snell. Yeah, I'm going with Benny Snell. I think the Steelers are going to run the ball so much in this game that they're going to want to not not that it's protecting them. They've not tried to overwork anyone in a game. They just haven't run the ball as much. I mean, might get more snaps, but when it comes to actual carries, I think you're going to see a season high in carries for the Steelers this week. And I think in the second half, you could see a lot of Benny Snell, and who could just completely. If he's running the ball at 5 or 6 yards a clip, you could just see the Steelers get the ball and just hold it for forever in the second half. So that's what I want to see, because I want the game to play out that way.
Which, by the way, Mike Tomlin on Tuesday, I do like pages of notes now because I do that podcast.
Mm-hmm.
He talked to a lot of people were freaking out, like, where was Benny Snell in week 8, and where was James Washington? He said, look, we didn't possess the football. Yeah. We didn't run the ball in the second half. So that changes a lot of things. More questions raised about Washington. I'm going to go with a pass catcher, but I'm not going with a receiver. I'm going with Eric Ebron in this game. I think that he's a guy. Yeah. You think about him being as a tight end, he's going to be on the field a lot more. They might have a lot more run personnel, more, those more traditional style of personnel packages. I think Ebron could be a great play action guy. And I feel like I said it last week. I felt like that was his coming out party on Sunday in Baltimore. Played a great game. Did have the drop early, but I thought he played a great game. I'll go with Eric Ebron. Okay, real quick, Mr. Biggs gives us $5. Thank you very much. Says, do you think the Steelers should play Snell and McFarland more to rest Connor for later in the season when we really need him? Well, Jimmy C was brought up, and you brought Benny Snell. Dave, what do you all think about throwing McFarland in the mix, maybe a little running back by committee in this game? What are your thoughts?
I think it depends on how they're doing. I mean, it depends on if the Steelers have a lead. But if you're talking about just flat up resting because they should be able to win no matter what,
I don't think it's.
You guys know how I feel about that, because I always want to bring up Week 7 of the 2015 season. I said this on my Scobro show that this was before I was a part of BTSC. So I heard from other Steeler fans, not the well-informed ones at BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers, that they're like, oh, remember Ben had been hurt, and their answer was the Chiefs were 1-5. The Steelers had to go there, and they're like, I think it's better if you just, even if Ben's okay, you don't play Ben. You just you let him take another week to get healthy, and we can go win that game without Ben. Well, I'm like, no, if Ben's healthy, he plays. If Ben's healthy, no, they'll hold him out. Well, he wasn't healthy. And what happened? Exactly what I said would happen if they didn't play Ben. They go in there and they lose, and Kansas City, wins like almost all the rest of them. So you don't take that mentality. But this is an opportunity, if it's a game that you can get it under control, go with, run them all.
All right, Brian.
Give the Terrell Edmunds.
Brian, you're not talking right now because Cree.
No.
People that have been with us for a long time on YouTube, and they've been a part of the live chat. Cree is one of those guys, and he gave us $50. That's the biggest donation we've ever received. He donated $50. He said, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, but even more so for your time that you put out each week. Cree, I don't know what to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes.
What's
and please admit to us if you just typed in an extra zero, and we will give you
the money
your
back.
your next 9 comments for free. Okay, if that's the case.
That's a good point. But still, it's a situation where I hope people that are out there listening understand that, yes, it is work. Yes, it is part of our job. But yes, we do love this. Yeah. Like I don't mind Thursday nights. I don't mind my Monday, Wednesday, Friday not my stat geek. I got Dave confused. My Let's Ride shows. I don't mind the injury reports. I know Brian doesn't mind doing Fact or Fiction and the Brooding Guide and the Hangover and the pregame. It's part of the gig. I mean, Dave's doing multiple shows. We love the Steelers. And we love to share that information with you because I don't know about them, but I can only speak for myself. I got sick and tired of trying to hear them ESPN radio talk about the Steelers. It'd be like, we'll talk about the Steelers right after this break. And I just pull up to work and I'm like, oh my gosh, I just drove 40 minutes and I didn't hear him talk about my favorite team. Well, you don't have to worry about that now because that's all we talk about. It is your favorite team. And Cree says, no, I wanted to do that amount. Wish I could have done it sooner. No. Well, Cree, we appreciate you, man.
That's too much.
Big time.
Yeah. But Big thank time. You. A great fan of the show, great supporter. Cree always, just the other night, I got a message from Cree saying, hey, the Scobro shows, is it on? So that's, and I said, nah, they'll be on. They must be running late. So, that this is a guy that absolutely loves this show. And I got to tell you, if I wasn't on this platform, I would be waiting on you guys every single week. I would be waiting for my Steeler news because I never got it. I was thinking in the car today how back in the day when I would go on headline news and I knew it was going to be 49 or 19 after the hour just to see the Pirate score or a Steeler highlight over and over because you just weren't getting that stuff. And now we have it. So it's great that we have this community, but the reason I'm here is because this is a great community and people can see my Twitter handle here. They can see all of our email addresses if they want to and reach out to us. And it's really nice because we feel like we have a Steeler family. And thank you, Cree.
Absolutely. Yeah.
My brother threw me under the bus.
I saw that. That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
All right. Let's do a little, we all did over. We did X Factor. Let's do over under. Ready? It's going to be a tough one. I had to really think outside the box here. Ben Roethlisberger throwing touchdowns, passing touchdowns. 2.5. Dave, over under.
I'm going to go under. I'm going to say 2 because I think the Steelers get more rushing touchdowns.
Okay, Bryan.
I'm actually going to say 3, so over. But he's not going to go crazy for 7, but he'll have 3.
I'm going to take the over. I'm going to take the over as well. I think we'll go with 3. James Conner rushing yards. This is a good, tough one based on what we just talked about. 115.
Ooh.
Brian Anthony Davis, go ahead.
Take the over, 14,000.
I'll go 116.
116. I'm going to take the under because I think it's going to be more by committee. It's going to be more.
Then you got to say the $1 because you would,
Yeah, like the
Price is Right.
Yeah. Real quick, let's get to this. Mr. Biggs gave us $5. Thank you very much. Again, he said, I was also wondering, do you think Ben is saving his arm with a lot of these short passes to unleash it in the playoffs? Personally, I just think that's the way the offense looks this year. That's just me.
Do what works.
Yeah. Dave, Brian, you disagree?
No, you're absolutely correct. Because when you look at that Ravens game the other day, the only stat that mattered in that game was not 265 yards given up rushing. It was a W. That's the only thing that matters when you play a team like that. You do what you have to do to win. If you have to have less passing yards, less passing yards, and don't care where you are in the rankings.
Yeah. All right. Next on the over-under game, overall yards, offensive yards for the Steelers, 350. 350. The Steelers' offense right now averages 339. Brian, over under.
I'm going to go over.
Okay, Dave.
Let's see. They're saying that the Cowboys have only allowed a team to go under 350 2 times all season. I'm going over.
I will take the over as well. I think this is going to be a good game. Steelers turnovers. They have a new streak going. What are they at? 2 games, I think.
Yeah. 2.
1.5. Brian, what's your over under there?
They are actually going to get 0 turnovers this week. And in fact, they might get negative 17 turnovers this week.
Dave, go ahead.
Well, that's the other thing. The Cowboys don't force a lot of turnovers. Yeah, they have 7 on the season, but 4 of them were last week. They only had 3 going in to their 8th game. So I'm going to say, let's say 1. I'll say 1. So I'll say under.
Okay, I'm going to say under. I think they play a clean brand of football in this one. I don't think they turn it over.
It would be nice.
Takeaways. Okay, takeaways. Steelers defense taking the ball away. We'll set it at 3.5. Brian Anthony Davis. Over.
I'm going to go under, and I'm going to say 3.
Dave Schofield. I was a little aggressive with this line.
Yes, you were, because 3 was the number I was thinking, and I thought for sure I'd be an over.
I don't know. First start NFL quarterback came to mind.
I think 2 of them are going to be strip sacks.
That's what I'm thinking too.
Yeah.
So you're saying over or under?
No, I'm going to go 3. I think there might be a point. I mean, I don't want to say it too much. I mean, do you think this? I don't want to get overconfident with this game, but it could get to a point that you might see multiple quarterbacks in this game.
I'm going to go with over. I think they have 4 turnovers, takeaways, I should say, in back-to-back games. I think they get 4 in some way, shape, or form. All right, now sacks on Ben Roethlisberger. So the Cowboys sacking Ben Roethlisberger 1.5. Dave, over under.
I am going under. I think maybe they can get 1.
Okay, Bryan Anthony Davis.
I like what Dave said there.
All right, I'm actually going to go over with 2. If Alden Smith plays, he still can get after the quarterback. Here we go. Sacks on whoever, DiNucci or whatever, that Rush, Gilbert. Sure. A little aggressive on this one too. I said 5.
Ooh, that's my number, Jeff. You knew I'm saying it every week.
Bryan, you think they can do over under 5 sacks?
If this is the first time you've tuned into the show, you're going to think, man, this guy is the biggest homer whatsoever. And I'm usually not this optimistic. I just really love this game and what it could be. I am going to go ahead and say over. And I'm going to say they get 8.
Wow, that would get him right back on track. Dave, what are your thoughts at 5?
I'm going to push.
No,
I'll go over and say 6.
I'm going to go. This is one of those games where you think the Steelers are just going to kill them. Not from a score standpoint, but offensively, offensive line, defensive, they're going to just annihilate them. And they just don't get there as much as you think. They might hit them a lot. I'm going to go under and actually go with 4. It's still going to be a good outing, but I think I'm going to go with 4. Chase Claypool touchdowns. This is my new favorite one to do. 1.5. Bryan Anthony Davis.
We'll go under. He gets 1.
You still think he gets 1? He has what, 7 on the season? That's incredible.
Yeah, and he's right up there with the Randy Mosses of the world.
They're not even halfway through.
I know.
That's
what's crazy. Dave, what about you?
You're going to think I'm crazy. I'm going to go over. I'm going to say he gets a receiving, and he will get another rushing.
So you're going 2. All right. I'm going to go under as well. I'm going to say 1. I think he gets 1. Here's a tough one. This is the last one as well. Juju Smith-Schuster receiving yards, 85. Bryan Anthony Davis.
Over.
Good. Dave.
I'm going to say over as well. I think he's going to crack the century mark this week.
Under 80, but they spread it around. They spread the wealth. Okay, let's get to our prediction time. What's the line now, Dave Schofield? It was 13.5 when I submitted my picks for the website, and now I think it moved to 14, I heard.
It is at 14 right now. It's funny because it was 9.5 when I did the article for Tuesday morning.
Yeah.
But that was based on Andy Dalton.
Right.
So now it's 14.
14, and the over-under is set at 42. 42. All right. Bryan Anthony Davis, what's your pick straight up with the spread and over-under? Go.
All right, straight up, the Steelers win this game 34-13.
Oh, my gosh.
He picked your score.
That's my exact score. I recorded Let's Ride already. It's already on there. I have it written down on this sheet of paper, 34-13.
Well, go ahead, go to the article. It's already in there. It's 34-13.
Well, it's fine. It's fine. Yep. But it's just crazy that we came up with the same exact score. Go ahead, Dave. 34-13. Why don't you do it too? Yeah.
No, this is what I'm going to say. Anytime the Steelers are favored by this many points, my first instinct is to take them to not cover. Because like I said, Mike Tomlin doesn't care about covering the spread. He cares about winning games. But the Dallas Cowboys have not scored a touchdown in 2 games. I'm going 31-6 Steelers.
You don't think they scored a touchdown?
Nope.
That would be great. That would be so good. I said 34-13. And that's it. Bryan and I, hey, great minds think alike, right, Bryan?
There you go, my friend.
All right. Let's do some bold predictions before we get to trivia and call it a show. Bold predictions, or did we do trivia first last time?
No, I think we do. I don't know.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. I can do trivia if you want.
Let's do trivia so I can think of a bold prediction.
Okay. Well, this is gonna be a 2-part question because Jeff knows the answer to the first part because he actually listens to Stat Geek. So this one's gonna be just for Bryan because he's not a team player. An article that I will have coming out, I think it'll be tomorrow with Jeff, because Jeff heard this on Stat Geek. He's like, I have a message when I wake up in the morning from Jeff, who's already, up and at him at the gym, listening to our podcast, and says that needs to be an article. And it was based from a question. a question that I had he told me his last name now, and I still can't remember. His name is Dave. He's from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and he asked the question of how do quarterbacks who get their first NFL start going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers, how do they fare? And the answer is, especially recently, not too well. But the question was, who was the last quarterback who made their NFL debut against the Pittsburgh Steelers that won the game? And Jeff knows this. I want to know if Bryan knows it. And I'll give you the hint, the same hint I put on Twitter. He's in the Hall of Fame.
Labor Day 1983, John Elway?
That is incorrect.
Oh,
that is the answer to question number 2 of who is the other Hall of Famer to make his first start against it. Because more recently than that, Jeff, sweep in for the steal.
Is it one Mr. Brett Favre?
It would be, because Brett Favre is Brett Favre. And yes,
week 4, 1992.
That is correct. And the Steelers actually went up against 2 quarterbacks that made their first start in NFL start in 1992. And what's ironic is those two players in that season are the last quarterbacks to make their debut or their starting debut against the Steelers and not throw interceptions. All quarterbacks ever since have thrown at least one interception in the game. And the other cool fact with that is the last 4 have all been for the Cleveland Browns.
I actually
which
knew
is
that.
Funny.
Which is funny when you said that on Stacking. I said it out loud. Browns. That's all the Browns.
Because not only that, because it seems like the Browns have a trend. The first time a quarterback starts is against the Steelers. The last time a head coach coaches is against the Steelers.
Could Stefanski be the next one? Because that's who they play in Week 17. I doubt it. But
I think he's a good player. They need to keep him around.
He's here to stay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. This was good. I can't believe Bryan got the second one.
Well, but all that, the Steelers, since the merger, the Steelers are the only NFL team that have faced multiple Hall of Fame quarterbacks when they made their very first start in the NFL.
That's a crazy stat. That's a good stat. Good stat. All right, bold predictions time. This is what we do. Bold prediction. Here we go. Well, before we get to yours, Bryan, Ocam's OX says $4.99 the tip jar. He's a bold prediction. Mason Rudolph and Benny Snell play every snap in the fourth quarter. 35-0. Steelers hammer the Cowboys 8-0. Let's go. That would be interesting. I was kind of thinking that way, but I didn't go there. Bryan, what's your bold prediction? I like that one, by the way, that he said. Go ahead, Bryan.
This is the week, my friends. He's breaking one. He's going to the house.
Oh, Ray.
Oh, come on. Ray. Okay.
Right.
That's a good one. Okay, here's my prediction. I could be completely off. That I think the Steelers are going to, just in case, go ahead and dress Avery Williamson. And my prediction is he will play every defensive snap in the fourth quarter
to get a sack,
and he will get he will get at least 1 tackle for loss.
What number is he? Has anyone seen that yet?
I saw that. What was it? 51.
Oh, Potsy.
Yeah, I think it was 51.
Okay,
I could be wrong, but
I can live with that. I can live with that. My bold prediction is that there's a young defensive back who gets his first NFL interception in this game, and that would be one Justin Layne, who has been seeing the field more with Mike Hilton out, and I think that especially if they have the game kind of in hand, that he might get a good shot, and he might get his hands on a football, and the second-year guy out of Michigan State makes a statement. I like that. I like Justin Layne. I liked him since they drafted him. I think he's a good player. Go ahead, Bryan. What's your final? Do you have something to say?
I just like that it's a Michigan statement.
Okay. Speaking of statements, why don't you give us your final thoughts to finish out the show?
Keep on saying it. This is a special team, guys and girls. I really love what's going on in Pittsburgh. Look, the trap game, it's not this week. I'm not always Mr. Positive. I try to be. I think I am. But when it comes to this, I always look at games that, hey, what can go wrong? There's no Admiral Akbar in the control room at all. It's not going to happen. This is not a team that has trap in their vocabulary. You saw last week with the Baltimore Ravens how they fell apart with adversity, with the tweets and the soldiers after the game, the headbutts, everything. Adversity knocked them out. The Steelers went about their business. They're going about their business. They're a team on a mission. Do not worry about that trap game at all. This is a different team than just last year, than 3 years ago, than 5 years ago. It's not in their vocabulary. Don't worry about it. Go Steelers, 8-0. The record comes to 2020.
Dave, go ahead. Final thoughts.
I think when it comes to the whole notion of the trap game, I believe that the Steelers, this isn't going to be the game. And believe it or not, you know who I think they're going to have to thank for that? I think it's one Marlon Humphrey. I think because of the whole, COVID reminder and like, my goodness, these people were doing stuff like this. We had to play against a guy that gets a positive test. It's going to kind of throw off our stuff early in the week and things like that. Gives you that gentle reminder of, hey, we're the team. We're doing things right off the field, and we're going to keep doing things right on the field. No trap game this time. Too much history. Although only 4 guys on the Steelers right now have played the Cowboys in Texas last time. There's only 4 guys left from that team that played 8 years ago. But it doesn't matter. It's there's something different with the unity of this team, and therefore I don't see this as a trap game going down.
Okay, $1.99 the tip jar real quick before we finish up. What's your thoughts on the Raiders?
You know what?
Rivalry?
I just think in general that they're a streaky team. They can beat anyone. They beat Kansas City and Arrowhead, and then they lose some other games in complete dud fashion. They beat a pretty decent Browns team in Cleveland. Very poor weather conditions last week. Brian, what are your thoughts?
Check out my rooting guide. I have a lot of things to say about how important the Raiders are to the Steelers right now. So check that out wherever you can get podcasts, any platform. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers rooting guide. You might like it if you want to hear about the Raiders.
Now I'll finish up with my final thoughts, and that is simple, that this is the 8th game for the Steelers, and it's hard to believe, but they're about halfway through their schedule. And it seems like just blink of an eye. Half of the season's gone. So as fans, it's great to ride this awesome wave of momentum that is the 7-0 start. But I say it all the time. I've said it on my Let's Ride podcast in the morning. Enjoy every step of it. Like, enjoy every game. We all love to look ahead. Let's just line up, beat the crap out of the Cowboys at 4:25 on Sunday. That's a quick reminder, everyone. It's a 4:25 start. But otherwise, just enjoy every game, because we get caught up in the hustle and bustle. And next thing you know, you're looking like, oh, it's the off season again. We got to wait all summer and all that stuff, which we're still going to give you that content, but still enjoy every step of it. And I hope you enjoy all of these shows that are on YouTube, as well as our PM podcast. And then lastly, make sure you subscribe, like Brian just said, anywhere where you get your podcast. So that's it for the Steelers preview. We'll see you next week as we preview a Week 10 matchup against the Cincinnati Bengals. In the meantime, folks, be kind to each other. Dave, why don't you send us out?
Hey.
We'll see ya.